Good evening. This is the June 5th meeting of the Ferrisburg Planning Commission. May I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Post,
Here?
Commissioner DeYoung. Here. Commissioner Schoberg, Commissioner Weber.
Here.
Commissioner Tuggle,
Here.
Commissioner Carlson,
Here.
Commissioner Hawley.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I move to excuse Commissioner Hawley and Schoberg?
Yes, of course.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight? Moved. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And the minutes of our May 1st meeting as printed. A motion to approve? Support.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion or corrections? They would look good. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. This is the time in our meeting when we call for public comment. If you're interested in making a public comment at this time, would you please introduce yourself and direct your comments to me, and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Okay, seeing no one rising for public comment, we'll close that and move to our first public hearing. This is a public hearing on a request filed by Andrew Sloan to construct a deck with a 3-foot east and west lot line setback with a 10-foot side street yard setback, waivers from zoning ordinance section 3.130 sub ID, parcel number 70-03-15-105-032, commonly known as a boat lot 0 Lakeview Avenue. Is someone here to speak on this public hearing? Okay. Close the public hearing. All right, we'll close the public hearing at 2 minutes after 7, and we move to discussion. David, do you have some comments on this proposal?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing a cement block patio for the subject boat lot. The patio is proposed to be 14 feet wide and 25 feet deep, and they're proposing a 10-foot setback from the right-of-way, 3-foot side setbacks, and then a 4-foot setback from the water line. The requirements in the zoning ordinance, the front setback, any sort of improvements on boat lots need to match the setbacks for principal dwellings on lots within the zoning district. So that would be 25 foot for the front and 10 feet for the sides. So the Planning Commission does have the discretion through the special land use process to reduce boat lot setbacks for improvements. So with that, they can, as a Planning Commission, you can reduce the front down to 10 and the sides down to 3. And so that's exactly what they propose, just get the minimums of what you can approve as a Planning Commission. Also, as you're aware, typically the Planning Commission makes a recommendation on special land uses to the City Council, but in this case, the ordinance specifically delegates that authority to you only for boat lot setback modifications. So overall, this is not going to be, it's fairly consistent with other boat lot development in the area. There's no taller improvements. It's just a patio for sitting, probably putting temporary furniture there. I don't think it will affect other properties. I don't think it'll be out of character with nearby boat lot development. And it's going to be block pavers. That's consistent with most of the boat lots. It's either pavers or decking. So I think it will be consistent. And overall, I think it meets the standards and recommend approval.
Thank you. Any discussion on the board? So I would entertain a motion to approve, or is that correct, Craig, to approve?
To approve or not approve would be the motion.
Yes. So is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the request filled by Andrew Sloan to construct a deck with a 3 feet east and west lot line setback, a 10-foot side, or street side yard setback on 0 Lakeview Avenue.
That's good.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. All right, we're moving to this second public hearing of this evening, a special land use and site plan approval to operate a brewery on parcel number 70-03-09-300-059, commonly known as 17,697 174th Avenue. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to this public hearing this evening? Why don't you come up and identify yourself and see if we have some questions for you.
Hi, I'm Jack Thornson. I live over in Spring Lake, owner and manager and brewer for No Wake Brewery. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Thank you. I was wondering if you had prior experience running a brewery. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Running a brewery, like managing and owning the business, no, except for the 3 or 4 years we've been in this process of getting open. I did work at Oddside Ales 2015 to 2017 in the production side and in the bar as a bartender and a barback. And then I've been homebrewing for many years now, I think since 2020 and probably 21. Would have been spring of 21 I started. And then I've written a lot of papers in college about beer and brewing and the science behind it, and read a lot of books. I had probably 3 boxes of them in storage, just books about beer. But yeah, that about covers it.
I believe you may have appeared before the Planning Commission earlier when I was not a member, and that was for opening a brewery at a different location,
Yes, that's correct.
and that one did not pan out.
That's correct.
That was in the Keenan Marine Building.
Yeah, unfortunately, the building was not up to code, and we were not able to make that work for us.
But it was the same concept, same name,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, this is actually
Yeah.
going to be better because we have more square footage. The building is up to code. We made sure of that ahead of time. And the improvements that need to be made to the building to have a brewery there are much, much less significant. There's no floor reinforcing that has to be done, no moving of staircases, just taking down a couple walls, putting in some plumbing, upgrading electrical, adding new walls, and then, installing bathrooms and seating in the bar and all that. Yeah.
Seems very, very exciting, and seems like a wonderful project. Sandy, do you have any further questions?
I just remember when you were in front of us before, you were talking about doing some food service as well. Are you still planning on doing that?
Yes, the kitchen design is in the plans I've submitted. There might be a couple changes on pieces of equipment we use, but this actually will have a more robust kitchen and menu compared to what we were planning on doing before. We would have had to do a ventless kitchen over at Keenan Marina. Now we can actually install a hood vent, so we can have deep fryers and proper full ovens and stove burners and the full range of equipment that would allow for a very versatile kitchen.
And are you anticipating doing breakfast, lunch, dinner, or lunch, dinner?
Probably lunch, dinner. That's whoever I hire to be to run the kitchen. That'll be more so their job to figure out when the kitchen opens and closes and all that. I will have input on that, of course, but I don't think breakfast will really be much. I don't know. It gets a little odd when you're serving beer before noon. That's not really what I want to do,
unless you're in an airport.
Yeah, those are extenuating circumstances, though.
So the initial concept when you were thinking about going into Keenan, from what I remember, you weren't talking about doing deep fat frying or anything like that.
That's
Just like a light menu,
Yeah,
but you're thinking full food service now?
certainly it's become an option where it wasn't before. The menu has largely remained the same in terms of like the base items that I want to serve at my brewery, but the range of equipment we're planning on installing is much more versatile and superior to what we had before. So that allows whoever I hire to be creative and have a lot more options of what we're offering customers.
I'm really in support of this project. I think this is going to be great for Ferrisburg and something that we need. Do you have a timeline at all, or is that too far out for you?
I've been saying 6 months for the last year and a half, so 6 months.
All right.
If
Let's
all
get
goes
you
well.
through here tonight.
If there's no further questions, we'll close the public hearing. Sorry, is there a question from the audience? Let me ask if you would please come up and identify yourself so that people listening at home can hear as well. And if you just surrender the microphone there.
My name is Alice Tenkate, and I live near the little strip mall there, and have walked in front of it for years. And I'm wondering, I'm sure you'll keep it cleaner, which will be a great benefit. But I'm curious about the hours that will be open, because we do have children around in the neighborhood too, and I don't care to have a lot of people roaming in and out and driving in the big parking lot there, when the kids could be around. So if you could give me that information, the hours especially are important to me.
Thank you.
To address that, our hours of operation probably won't be open before noon. You have to get a special license to open before, I think, 2 p.m. on Sundays. And that's, or maybe it's noon on Sundays and then it'll 10 a.m. with a special license. We wouldn't want to be open before noon. It's a little too early for that. But also, we wouldn't want to be open later than 10 p.m. on weekdays. That's how Oddside did it when I worked there, and that worked well for them. They stayed out of a lot of trouble that bars like Tip a Few or other places in downtown Grand Haven, they run into issues after midnight. I don't really think we'll ever be open past midnight. Maybe 11 or on Friday, Saturday, because that's pretty industry standard for breweries, unless you're in a major city like Grand Rapids or Detroit. Small town Ferrisburg, people probably not wanting to stay out quite that late, and I'm not sure I want to deal with, or I won't be there that late. I'll be brewing in the mornings, but my bartenders who I'm trusting to run the place, I don't want them to have to deal with that either. And then keeping it clean, we will definitely be keeping it clean. Having a good image and maintaining safe parking lot is important to all of us, yeah.
Thank you for your question and thank you for the answers. Are there any further questions from the audience concerning the brewery proposal? Okay, then at 7:15, we close the public hearing. And this is an opportunity for the commission to discuss and take action, if appropriate, to recommend to council to approve or not approve a special land use and site plan approval to operate a brewery on this parcel. Fellow commissioners.
Mr. Chair, Would
Yes,
you like Mr. Jurosik to go through his report?
of course, yes. First,
Mr. Chair, as you mentioned, this is a special land use for a change of use. Bars and taverns are classified as special land uses within the subject general commercial zoning district. As mentioned, they'll also have a restaurant use as well. With the change of use, if this was simply a permitted use, it would be an administrative review. But since it is special, it goes through you and the city council for final approval. I worked through the site plan review and special land use standards within your report. And overall, I'm comfortable with all the standards for special land use being met. However, my main concern is the parking. So anytime you have a change of use, especially in a multi-tenant facility, you have to consider the parking generation for the subject use as well as those tenants who are already in place. But we have also discussed in the past about our parking requirements allow for over parking of sites, especially at Leppings, as we've talked in recent meetings about the possibility to redevelop some of that parking area as well. So I think overall the city's parking requirements are pretty excessive. For the size of the space here, which would, well, actually it's based on seats. So they're proposing 126 seats. Based on our ordinance, that would be anywhere from 76 to 92 required parking spaces. We just received a tenant parking plan yesterday, and there's 69 total spaces between the Vet, a vacant space, Goodwill, Joseph's, Soils and Structures, and then No Wake. So 69 spaces, and we have a parking requirement for one tenant that's in excess of much more than what was there. Looking at other cases, other jurisdictions and best practices for parking for this type of use, it's typically more of one space per 4 people or 4 seats. So that would put the parking at closer to about 32. So that seems to make better sense with probably what they're expecting as the parking generation and what the overall facility owner is expecting. So between the various uses, I think they would likely be the highest traffic generating use between everything to the left side of the grocery store, all the smaller tenant spaces. I think 69 spaces would probably cover all situations. I think there's going to be some variations between peak hours of these facilities. I think you have the Joseph's, Goodwill, even the Vet, probably going to be more earlier in the day, afternoon, where this is going to be afternoon. So I think not going to line up with peak hours in this facility and others. So I think that 68, 69 spaces will suffice. But also there's an opportunity to expand that lot if need. So I think the Planning Commission, based on your discretion, you could recommend either deferred parking. So you could make a motion that you recommend approval with the condition that additional parking is added, the parking lot is extended if it ever became a problem, or you could simply approve it with the parking available. You could recommend reducing the parking to 69 total spaces for all 6 tenant spaces there. So again, our ordinance over parks, it would require excessive parking more than is available for all 6 tenant spaces. I think they would probably take up about half if they were very busy. And I don't think their peak hours are going to correspond with the other uses. So I think there's some opportunity to reduce or defer. If you're concerned, we can make a recommendation to defer. Also, I think if it ever became a problem, I think the owner of the site would probably do something about it, and there is space to expand parking.
thank you. I did receive the additional information, the parking map, and my fellow commissioners saw that as well. And there is also a comment from the owner partner of Leppings saying that they also felt, just as you say, David, that most of this new business would be later in the day parking and would not really conflict with the other retail and vet businesses. Speaking for myself, I think there's ample parking, and but I would like to specifically address that question to the rest of the board. If there's a feeling that we need to do something more on the parking question.
Mr. Chair, the initial proposal, I hate to mention it again, at Keenan certainly had a lot less parking, particularly on weekends. So I'd be thrilled to see Lepping's parking lot full. If we could do that, that'd be magical. So there's plenty parking there. And David, I think your calculations are spot on.
I think that's a great point too. We're talking about 67 or 69 spaces allocated to these 6 tenants, but there's still the entire grocery parking area.
Yes.
No one's going to be out there necessarily patrolling that you have to park here. People are just going to park where there's space available, and then there would be surplus spaces to the north as well.
And I'm assuming there's some parking in the rear for employees and things like that too, so there's probably that. No? No, okay.
I have no problem with the parking.
Neither do I.
Chair would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to know if there was any other concerns that David had besides parking.
Parking was the primary concern. I think all
Other
other
than that,
special land use
we're-
standards
Other than that, it's golden.
meets all other zoning requirements.
Thank you. That's all I wanted, Gary. So you're asking for motion?
Yes.
No, we had plan reviews from building inspector, public services supervisor, and fire chief, all recommending approval of the plans as submitted.
I hate to be motion happy, but I guess I'll make a motion to approve the special land use to operate the brewery on parcel number 70-03-09-300-059, commonly known as 17697 174th Avenue.
Just for clarification, this is a recommendation to City Council.
Yes, to City Council. With the parking, do we have to say that? Do we have to say anything about parking in that motion?
Just be as presented.
As presented, okay. So I'll recommend that to City Council.
A second or support?
I'll support.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Right. Congratulations.
Good luck.
So now we move on to our next item, a work session on housing. You're invited to leave if you like.
Thank
Yeah.
Yeah, see ya.
I'll clear out.
Oh, my.
Yes, it will be on the June 16th City Council agenda.
Mhm.
Our whole audience.
But a few parking spaces right there.
I think there's plenty of parking.
I think there's plenty.
And
of
it's actually surprising how much parking was required based on our ordinance.
Yeah.
70, 90 spaces, and that just seems to be, that would be a very successful business there.
Now, is that a standard ordinance, or is that something that we should be re-looking at?
I think it's something we need to look at. I mean, we do, obviously, we do have the reduction authority as well as deferment, so we can consider, and most ordinances will have provisions to be able to consider the applicant's proposal, and they may be able to say, and not in this case, but in other cases, if they run a retail store or restaurant or drive-through facilities in other jurisdictions, they can give us examples about their traffic generation and their parking needs. So typically, we can look at other similar examples and then base our decision on that information. So with this is obviously his first run at this. He doesn't quite know probably what type of interest and customer base he'll have, but I think there's going to be plenty there. But as mentioned before, I think our ordinance does allow for over parking in general, and we may want to adjust that
Does it make sense to do the public hearing on housing first?
Yes, I think we just have a general
Just a
work
work
session
session.
discussion.
Excuse me, work session.
I unfortunately do not have any, I wasn't able to prepare anything ahead of this meeting, but I am working on the downtown mixed use and multifamily recommendations. I hope to have something for you for the next meeting, as well as I'd like to go through some exhibits or specific aerial, looking at blocks and how buildings would fit in. So as I work on the requirements, I'm making sure that they're calibrated to downtown type blocks and the opportunities that we have. So next time I'd like to walk through the recommendations for downtown and the waterfront, multifamily and mixed use, as well as the suburban retrofit for the Leppings Plaza, as well as the general commercial at 174th and Van Wagner. So that's what we had decided last time to take it chunk by chunk. And just because it's first on the list, those downtown and general commercial recommendations are first. And I hope to have something that we can really get into next month.
That's fine. And David, my personal request is that you prepare something in time for Craig to get it out in the packet so that we all have a chance to read it and be ready to go.
I have something on housing, and that is, Craig, you and I were sent something, notification about the county receiving some brownfield funds.
Yes, yep.
Does that ring a bell with you, and is that any chances of us doing anything here?
Gary could probably speak better than I could. He's on the brownfield.
We haven't had a county brownfield board meeting since the news came of the award by the EPA of a $500,000 grant. I've just briefly seen some press release materials about it, and it's really great news for all of Ottawa County, and any eligible proposal here in Ferrisburg could get potentially a lot of support, assuming we have a property that either needs remediation in a classic brownfield sense, or secondly, we have a proposal brought forth where there's a request for support for the housing element. We were running on fumes. We were down to like less than $20,000. So this is really good news for the county as a whole. But it all depends on having a specific project brought forward to make an application.
Thank you.
Chair, do we have a variety of brownfield sites in our community? Do you know, or Craig, do we have properties that would be eligible?
Yeah, there'd be
Yeah.
property. It could be obsolete property or something that needs to be remediated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Also, Paul Sachs with the County Office of Strategic Initiatives spoke with me at the recent county training on incentivization for business properties throughout the county, and indicated he would like to come back and speak with Craig and myself and the mayor. And I've asked that we try to have a presentation made available for the whole planning commission. And this is one of the things the county is talking about in particular, is a countywide initiative to support what are called small footprint homes. And this really ties in with our discussion on housing and trying to find a really good solution to support smaller homes so we can have more housing in Ferrisburg, but of a good character and a good fit for Ferrisburg. So hopefully that we'll have news of that at our next meeting.
You're thinking at the next planning commission meeting, Gary?
Or the one after that.
Okay.
I think there's 2 meetings, maybe one like the one we had before, Mr. Mayor, and then another one in front of the whole planning commission. So I think we're ready to close the work session on housing and move to the work session on Pine Street parking. David, are you able to do a intro on the Pine Street parking?
I'll try
defer it
first.
to-
Craig on that.
Thank you.
So Pine Street is in need of repair. With the street millage that the voters approved a couple years back, we have the funds available to do that project now. So before we start moving on the project and hire an engineer, we need some feedback from the planning commission with the prior recommendation of city council on it. And the master plan talks about having on-street parking at Pine Street. So that's something that the planning commission really wants to see out there. If so, where, from where to where? So on the map here, this is down here is the bank down here, and this is the gas station up here on the north. So is there interest in putting on-street parking this whole distance and putting down this 4-lane down to 2 lanes? Or you were talking about doing from 4th to 5th, from 3rd to 5th? So, you know, over on the easterly side, you got Johnson Boiler down here, you got North Cove condominiums, and you got Keenan Marina. So that property on the east probably won't change for many, many years. Over here on the westerly side of Pine Street, we got the bank, Pine Street Cafe, some residential, and some apartments. So eventually someday this may change. And then we got the businesses back here on Oak and Elm Street, McKellips, Tri-City Oil, used to be the Westwind Building, a couple residential. This is Fox, or the Woodwork place now. So we're looking for feedback from planning commission before we hire an engineer. What do you want to see out there?
So on 4th Street there, that's where Tri-City Oils is? Is that 4th Street?
Tri-City Oil is right here.
Yes, what street is that?
This is Oak Street right here and 5th.
No off-street parking on any of those streets presently.
That's correct. We have, the only parking on a city street is right here in front of the post office, 5-minute parking.
And Pine Street, are there some spots in front of Pine Street on that street that are longer than 5 minutes?
No, there's no parking on Pine Street, period.
No? I'm sorry, on,
Not Pine Street, but the side street.
sorry, that's what I mean.
By
Yes,
the
not
post
Pine
office, by the
Street.
post office.
The post office, I typically, I feel like I see cars parked there for longer than 5 minutes. So that's just, okay.
So I think the ones down here towards Pine Street,
That's
people
what
are
I'm talking
parking,
right there,
park
yeah.
there and they go into the
But
restaurant.
technically, that's 5 minutes? Okay.
Before we put the cart before the horse in terms of what we'd like to see down there, what are the considerations for traffic? Or don't we have any considerations for traffic because traffic is low enough that it's not an issue?
I'm not sure the traffic warrants a 4-lane road.
Speaking between Fifth Third and the Citgo station.
Correct.
And are there restrictions on us in terms of what we can do? Do we have to put a bike path along the side of a street if we're gonna redevelop a street these days?
There is a sidewalk on it.
No requirement?
No requirements.
So we could conceivably go down to 2 lanes, or 2 lanes and a turn lane?
Yeah.
2 lanes, parking on one side, both sides?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, as part of the master planning effort, we actually did have a traffic engineer and a transportation planner take a look at the Pine Street corridor. In the planner, Brad Strader was actually involved just after 2000. I think maybe Craig was that right before your time, or there was a involvement, I think, with LSL Planning at that time, one of my old employers, to look at the corridor and parking and traffic in general. So Brad Strader is actually quite familiar with Pine Street, and so he took a look at it with me as part of the master plan update process, as well as a traffic engineer from their company. And what they said, they said that the traffic volume is between 8,000 and 9,000 vehicles per day, I believe. The really a threshold for 4 lanes would be anywhere from 12 to 15,000. So
Oh, my.
we're well under that threshold, so more than adequate for 8 to 10,000 cars per day.
Okay.
So, and with that, during their assessment, they were comfortable with on-street parking north of Third to the gas station. Again, I think it's all somewhat conceptual as part of a master planning process. And I think with that, we wouldn't have to have the engineers and designing the striping and the spacing. They could look at that with the priority of the master plan in mind and come up with some different scenarios and give some pros and cons as they're actually outlining how the street would be striped and how wide the spaces would be. In the master plan, we had recommended 11-foot space travel lanes would be sufficient for the type of traffic here. But again, I think those details are worked out during the design of paving and the striping.
Are these parallel spots that you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay. Is there just not the space to have angled parking? Like I'm thinking like along, like kind of by Pronto Pups in Grand Haven, how that you can just pull right in. I just feel like backing up into a spot. I guess they'd probably just pull forward if that's a road.
You think
The practicality of parallel parking, right?
Yeah, when that is like a 35-mile-an-hour road. Like, I mean, sometimes I'm cruising down that road. I would hate to think of someone in front of me trying to parallel park.
good point.
I don't know if there's just not the space for that. And then I will, beat this horse till it's dead, but trying to get crossing that road. I know we've talked about that before. Has there been any discussion of that? I just think of a mom with a kid on there. I was just driving and saw this, and they were crossing at that intersection by the gas station, but it's so busy and there's all traffic coming. I don't know. Like that's a huge priority, trying to find a way to cross that road. Maybe that's a different scenario.
Craig, I'd like to follow up on Jordan's question. Some of the material that was provided from the master plan also talks about steps that could be made to make the crossing safer for pedestrians and bicyclists. Apart from parking, is that something we can address as well?
Yeah, we like to look at all of that while we're redoing the street. If any improvements that we want to do, now's the time to do it. So we can look at different options.
So things like bump outs, like when you have the parallel parking, either the cars themselves or the bump outs ahead of the car. Sometimes you have a curb bump out. Bump outs also reduce the width of the crosswalk as well. So as you begin to make that reduction, and as there's those physical things like cars and curbs, signage, that's going to begin to naturally calm the traffic in this corridor. So I think just having parking there is going to people are going to stop at the stop sign, proceed north, and realize that they're entering a place, and it's not just a speedway to get through, but it's a place where people are actually stopping and crossing. I think the more activity and improvements we have there, it's going to be a natural traffic calming effect to it.
Okay, maybe this continues too far, but this makes me think of the bridge. And I know there are so many fishermen on that bridge, and there's only like 2 or 3 spots. So, I mean, I'll be driving through there on like a Saturday morning, and there are cars that are parked on both sides of the bridge, and you're going over the bridge going north, and I turn kind of veer left to go towards my street, and there's cars, like 3 or 4 cars parked right almost on the sidewalk. I don't know if this is an opportunity, if this is in the bridge discussion to add more parking, but I mean, I've counted as many as 20 fishermen on that bridge on any given Saturday, Sunday, and there's only technically 2 or 3 spots. Maybe we don't want to open up that can of worms and have a bunch of spots there, but I think that's
parking
an
over
issue.
here.
What?
You're talking parking on 168th Avenue?
Yes, yeah, like right when you cross the bridge and you start to veer to the left on 168, there, right where his cursor is right now, I've seen like 3 or 4 cars parked right there. And that's not a one-time thing. It's usually in the mornings, but that's typically when they're fishing. So that's a hazard. So I don't know if this connects with that or not, if that's too far down, if that's more of a bridge discussion, but that's definitely something to think about.
We did look at that because 168th Avenue was gonna be repaved starting Monday.
Yeah, it's the
And we looked at trying to provide parking, but with that right-of-way line right next to the bike path, there's just no room.
Yeah. I don't know if there's an opportunity to have more parking south of the bridge, but then I don't know, then you might get into homeowners.
So when they do the bridge, they're actually gonna take this parking that's on the westerly side and move it to the easterly side.
And how much parking will there be?
The same 5 spaces,
Or they're 5?
supposed to be. Another thing we wanna look at though is when we come up here to, coming down Pine Street. So down here to the railroad tracks is M104 trunk line. So really, the city can't do anything with it there. At one time, when you were headed north, you had a left-only lane or a straight-through lane. And MDOT came back and said they had to get rid of that left turn lane only because it wasn't signed properly and there wasn't space to put the proper signage up there that there was gonna be a left-hand turn lane only moving forward. So right now, anybody that's going north, they have the 2 lanes, both lanes can travel north without having to turn left.
And I think that's a really good point, because that does relate to where we would start on-street parking on the east side of the road. Unless you have that left turn only, you have 2 lanes potentially going north right into 1 lane with parking. So until we were able to work with DOT to do something about that, making that left turn only, the engineers may come up with a solution to transition that on-street parking. Maybe it's north of 4th Street on the east side, on the waterfront side. And maybe at some point it merges. So that's something I think the engineers could provide an opinion on during their design of the striping.
This is definitely a good conversation to have because there are some things that could definitely be tweaked on that street.
So Craig, you're visualizing traffic that's gonna be heading across Smith's Bridge to go to Johnson Boiler and then just continue on straight in the right-hand lane. And then the left-hand lane would be turning to head north to Muskegon. And then we'd have angled parking on the Pine Street Cafe side.
Parking
Is that
on both
right?
sides, east and west, right?
Both sides parking, the master plan envisions both parallel parking on both sides of the street.
Okay.
But
What if we got
It's-
rid of parallel parking, which most people consider blows, particularly on a street that's got 9,000 cars a day on it? You don't really want to be sitting there parallel parking. A lot of people won't. It's too uncomfortable for them. So if we could do angle parking, that would be fantastic. If there's room on one side of the street to have angle parking.
I think it would have to be one side only with angled parking.
And do it on the cafe side of the street, the bank side of the street.
Yeah,
And that's why I'm asking, traffic coming off from Spring Lake would be bearing to the Johnson Boiler lane. And then you'd have a left-hand turn lane to head north to Muskegon.
Right, and
So what
on the
side?
south of Third.
I'm sorry, Richard, the way you're describing it,
Okay.
you're losing me,
Okay.
but I think we're talking about, could we do angled parking on the west side of the street, the cafe side, and not on the right-hand side? Is that correct? Or-
Could you zoom, Craig? So this is the bank, right? I guess what I'm visualizing is you're gonna have angled parking along here like this, right? Heading up towards the cafe. And so this lane is gonna be blocked off, this closest lane here in front of the bank. Traffic coming this way is gonna be conceivably stopping or not stopping for Johnson Boiler, right? But just go straight through. And all the traffic is gonna be coming through. It's gonna be interesting. Do we need to involve MPO in this or pick their brain a little bit? MDOT?
But we want to get some feedback, is there interest in trying to do something there before we,
Well, and I'm trying to think who's going to be taking these spots. And what's coming straight to my head is marina guests, because that parking lot is wild on the weekends. So I don't know, maybe you guys think otherwise, but I feel like marina guests are going to be the ones that are trying to take those spots. So we want to be strategic too. If we are doing it on that Pine Street side, then all those marina guests that are parking there are going to have to cross that road. There's really not a great spot to cross. They're going to be running in the street, I would think. So I don't know.
Bump outs, there will be crosswalks.
Okay, that would be great.
Like David was explaining, the bump out will bring the edge of the crosswalks closer. In other
Okay.
words, it narrows the street
Okay.
for the pedestrian.
So I'm not really visualizing what you mean by that, but
As you
yeah.
were describing, like at the Sitco Station corner, there's just so much asphalt there. It's just daunting. And you've got that crazy road coming in at the angle there at the gas station. Yeah.
Angled intersections, not an engineering best practice in terms of intersections, so that's something that could be aligned a bit better. But is there a general, I mean, a lot of this is this kind of a measurements and numbers game with what you can fit in and when it begins, in considering that transition north from 3rd Street, at what point do we narrow down, because we have 2 lanes going into the city-owned portion of the road. At what point do they transition to 1 lane going north? And we may need some room, depending on if you do angled or parallel. I think the engineers just have to be able to work that out during the design process. But is there a general consensus that they should look at this on-street parking and give us some different scenarios for consideration?
I feel like I'm talking a lot tonight, but this is interesting to me, Mr. Chair. Sorry. I think what we have to ask ourselves is who's going to be parking there. Like we don't want to just put parking just to put parking. Like we have to identify a need and then add in the parking as necessary. So I feel like we'd have to kind of look at what is currently existing, what's not probably changing anytime soon, and decide if we feel like it's necessary.
Well, it may not entirely be necessary at this time, but it's an opportunity for us to look at our master plan and say, does it make sense to put in some on-street parking with the thought that will help our downtown grow and be more attractive to some of the existing businesses, changing to perhaps more retail or more foot traffic.
It'll definitely calm the traffic. It'll give a different feel to that area and make it more conducive, I think, like what Gary's saying about development, right? Which is what we're trying to attract.
When I talked with Craig this week about this, I was trying to see something. I guess my question, there's some interest in seeing a proposal for angled parking on one side only. How difficult would it be, Craig, to ask for something like that to be drawn up for us to look at?
yeah, I can ask the engineer to draw up some rough sketches, sure.
I was wondering about the math. So you got like X amount of feet, and there's like angled parking versus parallel parking. You'd fit more parallel than you could fit more angled than parallel, right? Do you think about the math of it?
Sure, yes. I think
So if you lose the one side of the road but do parallel on the other, you wouldn't necessarily lose half of the portion of it. You'd still be able to retain like
All the parking.
most of it, which would adapt to what you hope the master plan would bring downtown. I just don't want any of us to think like we're tricked into like, oh, you do parallel on one side and you lose half of what we thought would be there. I think with the parallel, the math of it. When they do that, Craig, the nice green space, because it is nice when you drive down there, the city all the time, we have like in that the banners and it looks nice. Is any of that gonna get touched or any of like the grass, like between like the sidewalk and the road? If we're thinking like parallels and stuff, or like, it looks nice.
Yeah, there's quite an elevation change once you get off that sidewalk. Kind of goes-
Yeah, sidewalk kind of hairy too.
Yeah,
Yeah. But will it still like have like, if you did the parallel parking, or if you did the angle parking, would you lose some of that appeal in terms of grass, trees and stuff, or do you not even touch that?
I'm not sure you would.
I think anything we do, we're within that 42 feet curb to curb. It's just what we can fit in at one angle and how many sides, if we're doing one side or two sides, I think we're just working within the 42 feet curb to curb.
From like a planning, like does the parallel versus the angle really even, other than like what we would say would be our preference, like a planning perspective?
Well, parallel is, people feel it's more challenging on a somewhat busy street, and angled fits more, will allow more cars to park. But I think you're asking also, does it, by putting in angled parking on one side, is that going to make everything fit? Is it going to take part of the existing landscaping and sidewalk away?
Yeah, that's correct.
You're talking down there by Keenan? Is there area here?
No. On the other side by like,
On the west, on the
by the
west side.
by like Pine. Or by,
There would be sufficient space for angled parking and two 11-foot lanes. So 11 feet, 2 lanes, so 22 feet. So then you'd have 20 feet extra space, and a typical parking space in a lot is going to be 18 feet deep. So that leaves us 20 feet. And so the depth of a angled space is going to be less than that as well. So we gain a couple of feet just by them being angled. So I think if one side angled spaces, I think there's plenty of room to do it all within the 42-foot section.
Yeah, we'd have to stay between the red lines there and go outside the red lines.
And if we do angled, we're only doing it on the west side and nothing on the east side.
This is over in Spring Lake Village on Exchange Street. You see where they have the bump outs here? And then they have the crosswalks to try to calm the traffic down on Exchange Street.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got the parallel parking there
This is in
on the
Spring
south
Lake?
side.
It's on Exchange.
Yeah, and
At Jackson and West Exchange. I think this is Village Hall here, I think.
on that road. That's the main drive through Spring Lake, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Nope, it's Exchange, so it's the side one street over.
By where the splash pad is. That street.
Savage.
It's next, yeah. So, can I ask a question here? If we did hypothetically put parking on that street, whether it be angled or parallel, with the speed that the people are going through there currently, I think it would pose a little bit of safety issue. So I don't know if we're talking about trying to slow that traffic down. I like the idea of angled. I think it's better, but I'm thinking about it realistically. If I know if I'm downtown Grand Haven, and if I go to back out, I'm really having to try and like creep out there before I can even see what's coming. And when we have higher speed traffic coming in one lane, it might just be a little bit more difficult during those busy times to back out of angled parking than it would be to pull forward out of parallel.
And we don't have the space, David, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but by Pronto Pups in Grand Haven, they have like a whole lane dedicated to their angled parking with a curb in between.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the space to do something like that. I mean, I guess you've got to know in advance that you're turning into there, but
It's almost like a parking lot, and it's so.
maybe
yeah.
that's probably why I did that, to make it safe for people backing out, but maybe I don't have this.
Well, we could also put in speed humps and lower the speed limit in
Right.
this area as well.
It's 35.
And I think with
This
this
is
being,
right
I think the idea with some of this was to be an incremental approach for both sidewalk and crossing safety and on-street parking. So if we're doing just repaving and striping, that's kind of the initial step to create this new calmed on-street parking environments for our downtown efforts within the curbs. And now, future phases could be to expand past the curbs into, because there's certainly a lot more right of way than just 42 feet. That's just curb to curb. Right of way is going to extend beyond both sides of the sidewalks. So, but that gets to a much higher expense and get on the capital improvements list to make those types of changes. But so I think the idea is to just do what we can within a paving project with some possible bump outs in crossing improvements as more kind of an incremental approach to it. But I think long term, I mean, if this works well and it's mainly done with striping, I mean, it's something that can evolve over time.
Connor, I think you do bring up a good point though, with like the character and the charm of Ferrysburg driving through there. And obviously we aren't the only ones making this decision, but I would hope that we would preserve that charm with whatever.
I'm hearing some consensus for asking that we have a visual presentation at next month's meeting for angled parking on the west side only, and possibly some what's the word, improvements that David was just referring to, bump outs and other things to make pedestrian and bike calming measures. So is that fair?
I would be open to at least considering parallel as well as angled, just to kind of see, what that would look like, how many spaces would be available in each way. And I don't know, I'm thinking from a safety perspective too, like just some feedback on what the options would be each way.
You would like to see two proposals
Yes.
for us to look at? Okay, I'm hearing, Craig, I'm hearing that we'd like to look at two different proposals to see if either of them would be something we'd like to recommend to council.
We can do that. I can't promise anything for July 3 though. I don't know how busy the engineer is, what he has on his plate right now.
Does this project have a time consideration to it?
No.
Okay.
And I don't need to see anything super fine-tuned, detailed, just
Yeah.
some
rough sketches.
scratchings,
Yeah.
even just to see what that would look like. Yeah.
See what's possible.
Mhm.
And the engineers may have their own suggestions about how to handle it. And I mean, they're
Yeah.
gonna have their considerations based on their experience,
I would
spacing,
appreciate
the
that.
dimensions. And I think if they were able to just show a couple different scenarios based
Mhm.
on the desire for either parallel or angled on one or both sides, I think they can show us those options in a rough conceptual format.
Okay, are we ready to end the work session on Pine Street? Okay, you have enough information, Craig?
Yes, thank you.
All right, and then now we move to item 12, the work session on the city logo update project. I think you have something to present on that, Craig?
Yes. So, City Council has indicated they would like to maybe change the logo, update it a little bit. As Planning Commission talked about it at the last meeting. Today I met with a marketing company that did work for Norton Shores and Muskegon. I sent you an email this morning about how they would probably do this. Working with doing some research, trying to come up with some feedback from the community on what the community wants to see. Put all that together and come up with some options and bring it back, explain each option that they created. And then if, once a selection was made, they would work on how that would be implemented throughout the city, time frame, cost, and so forth. To do that work, they're talking $25,000 to $30,000.
Thank you. Commissioners?
With that significant amount of money being spent on something like this, do we want to ask council if they want us to pursue this, knowing this information now?
Yes.
I think that's a great thought.
So I think this is a exciting idea. I was I had a little sticker shock at first, but I think Ferrisburg, we're 60 years in. There is a pretty good identified need that the city logo is dated, and the phrase Ottawa Peninsula. There's quite a bit of support for at least revisiting that. So I guess I would like to try to run this up to council and see if there's support. Do we need further discussion?
So if there's interest in moving forward, I think we should go to city council and request permission to solicit bids to do marketing upgrades.
Yeah, that's excellent too.
And also this, and that is that instead of just a complete logo rebranding and city rebranding, council would be amenable, I believe, to refreshing the logo, because I think council was fairly amenable to keeping the logo as it is. In other words, the shape of it and everything with the sailboats and whatnot. But do we do something with fonts? Do we do something with color? Do we do something with logo?
With City of Parks, perhaps?
Yes, whatever it comes down to. But I don't think council is going to be $30,000 for a total rebranding.
Yep.
Is it possible that we could ask direction from council for up to the total rebranding, but also something less than that? Likewise, Craig is indicating we could put this out to bid, and perhaps there would be companies coming in at a lower price.
Craig, do you have any thoughts on this?
So $30,000 is a pretty good piece of change. So, you know, I can go back to the marketing company, ask them would it be maybe just update our logo with different colors, different fonts, different slogan on the bottom, and bring that back to you. Or else we can go out to city council and say, do you want the full blown refresh on the logo with getting community input and then coming up with some different options at a cost of $25,000 to $30,000.
That's what I think we should.
Get a second quote kind of estimate, or with just the refresh of the current logo?
I'm not the one driving this logo thing. That was initiated by Councilmember Sturley, I believe.
So
And he's the one that mentioned it, and so I think that dollar amount needs to go back to city council.
Okay.
With the idea being that, hey, we need to maybe potentially look at fonts, colors, logo.
Okay.
So the
shape.
Potentially, Craig could put out a request for bid that might come in with other companies at a more competitive price. And secondly, reducing the scope of work, as you've suggested, might also allow us to get a less expensive package.
Mm-hmm.
But do we want to go to council first, or
yes?
Mhm.
Okay, right. So I'm hearing direction that
Okay, we'll bring this to city council and get some feedback for the planning commission.
We'll get it.
Yep.
right. Does that conclude the city logo project discussion? Okay. That takes us to second call for public comments, and no one is here from the public. That takes us to the next item is zoning administrative report.
The next meeting is July 3, the day before the 4th of July. Is everybody available?
Yes, I see.
I will be out of town.
I will not be. No, I will be. I will not be. I'll be here for the 4th. What was the date?
July 3. It's a Thursday.
Where's got me on a Google Calendar?
Craig, we have two absent members tonight. Why don't we schedule it for July 3 and survey the absent members? And if there's too many of us missing, we can put out a request for alternate dates.
Okay. I'll do that.
Tentatively, let's go for the planned date.
I'll be here.
I'll send an email out. Thank you. That's all I have.
No chairman report. Members report.
I have no report. But I do think it just keeps knocking in my head here about it with this logo and rebranding. I feel like it's something we should at least let the community know. And if there are some awesome graphic designers that come up with something, could bring it forward. I mean, it could be a fun way to get the community involved.
Good idea.
Gordon,
No report.
Mr. Mayor.
Craig, any word yet on next phases for channel side?
They're working on the documents. I see they're clearing the ground I think they're getting close.
They're getting close. And that's going to be 3 additional buildings or?
2 additional buildings. The south building will have 5 units, and the north building was 2 units, or 1 unit.
I would certainly encourage all you commissioners to drive by that site, channel side site, check out the landscaping and everything else. It looks like work has happened on the south, where that soil was coming down from the adjoining property, right on the property line behind the building. Looks like that's been addressed. Certainly look in the evening, driving from Leppings, and then drive towards Leppings and see how the lights are. I believe the lights are out too much. They are shooting way out into the woods, towards the channel. Just an observation of mine. But it's always interesting to me to take a look at a project to see how it was developed on paper and and what we approved and how it's developed. Yes, definitely.
Hesitation. for the
You bet.
neighbors.
So other than that, no report.
No report.
I think we're ready to adjourn.
Great.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Another day.
You do such a nice job as chair.